I think the defense naturally is trying to poke holes sort of in some of the earlier testimony that Sean Combs was always the person in control and that Cassie Ventura was forced into these situations. So the defense all day have really been laying out a lot of text messages and a lot of emails that tell the story of a very complicated relationship from the very beginning. In fact, in 2007, they showed the jurors an email where Ventura basically says after 2 months of having a kiss with Combs and saying that's when their relation started after her 21st birthday. After their relation started 2 months later, jurors saw an email where she basically says, I love you. I'm so excited to be a part of this relationship with you, how she had plans of a future with him. So they're laying out somebody that was excited about the idea of being with Sean Combs at 21 years old and her future plans, but also a little bit of jealousy. In that same email, she makes reference to wondering if maybe Combs should have went after her friend, Carrie, and then said maybe you should have went with Carrie because she could help you or, do the things that you want her to do or something to that effect. But she also said, which I thought was really interesting in that email, Rachel, is I want to be the woman that you want me to be. Like almost this idea of teach me what it is I need to be to keep you happy. And that was 2 months into the relationship.
She's having to read these emails and these text messages out loud in court.
Yeah.
What is her demeanor like?
Her voice is low at times. The defense did tell her if it's too much, I can read them. But there were many times early on this morning where she read some of those explicit details where she is clearly excited about freak off and talks about entertaining other people in the bedroom.
And what has Diddy's demeanor been in this cross-examination as well?
There was a moment where Sean Combs was nodding in agreement when they brought up a message that he sent her where he said, one of my favorite times of the freak-offs is when we're able to make love after. And then she responds, that's the same for me. Now, what's interesting here is that does match what she told prosecutors or what she's been telling the jury all along, which is she did this and she said, but she really wanted to spend time with him after the fact. So he was shaking his head at this message where he's almost, I guess, agreeing that he did say, without him saying it, he enjoyed having the freak-offs and then having sex with her after the fact. And her saying, I agree with you, I love having sex with you after too.
What has been the response from jurors today?
Jurors are paying attention. They have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in. They're very alert. And I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, 2 of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides.
I'm hearing at one point in time, you have acknowledged this as well, that as Diddy was listening to the cross-examination, he was nodding his...
I know, can't avoid it. And we see this throughout the trial, people running by or rolling by, if you will, with music playing. I've heard the Me and You song by Cassie Ventura, which kind of made her famous. And we just heard one of Diddy's songs as we're doing this interview.
Right. You had previously said that Diddy was nodding in agreement to some of the text messages that Cassie was reading out loud. I've also heard that Diddy was taking notes.
Oh, yes.
As well?
Oh, yeah.
At what point was he taking notes?
I've seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.